Thank you, Senator Thune and Senator Schatz. Everything you said, it's sad to me because it's happening not by accident, but by design. Because the business model is to keep people engaged, which in other words, this hearing is about persuasive technology. And persuasion is about an invisible asymmetry of power. When I was a kid, I was a magician, and magic teaches you that you can have asymmetric power without the other person realizing it. You can masquerade to have asymmetric power while looking like you have an equal relationship. You say, pick a card, any card, while meanwhile you know exactly how to get that person to pick the card that you want. And essentially what we're experiencing with technology is an increasing asymmetry of power that's been masquerading itself as an equal or contractual relationship where the responsibility is on us. So let's walk through why that's happening. In the race for attention, because there's only so much attention, companies have to get more of it by being more and more aggressive. I call it the race to the bottom of the brainstem. So it starts with techniques like pull to refresh. So you pull to refresh your newsfeed. That operates like a slot machine. It has the same kind of addictive qualities that keep people in Las Vegas hooked to the slot machine. Other examples are removing stopping cues. So if I take the bottom out of this glass and I keep refilling the water or the wine, you won't know when to stop drinking. So that's what happens with infinitely scrolling feeds. We naturally remove the stopping cues, and this is what keeps people scrolling. But the race for attention has to get more and more aggressive. And so it's not enough just to get your behavior and predict what will take your behavior. We have to predict how to keep you hooked in a different way. And so it crawled deeper down the brainstem into our social validation. So that was the introduction of likes and followers. How many followers do I have? And that got it was much cheaper to, instead of getting your attention, to get you addicted to getting attention from other people. And this has created the kind of mass narcissism and mass cultural thing that's happening with young people, especially today. Completely from scratch. That's the pace at which this new technology is emerging. So how can we solve the problems of the social dilemma if technology keeps moving faster ahead? Now, of course, we're in a real situation with a war in Ukraine, and we're seeing now images come out of Ukraine that look like this and like this. But are these images that I'm showing you now, are they real images? Or did I give the same AI this text, hashtag breaking news, massive explosion reported over Kharkiv, Ukraine, and it generated these images from scratch? When I can post these on Twitter at scale, using technology to synthesize millions of images, this is like a neutron bomb for trust on the internet, and it is completely outpacing our institutions to respond to this. So, as my friend Daniel Schmachtenberger says, we can't have the power of gods without the wisdom, love, and prudence of God. How do we have the wisdom, love, and prudence to wield the increasing complexity and challenge that we're now facing? So I want to invite you for a moment to put on your Charles Xavier helmet with me and actually think about the global problems facing the world today. The complexity of misinformation, cyber attacks, nuclear escalation, global financial risk, extremism, AI arms races, climate change, debt to GDP ratio, synthetic biology, or mental health. These might seem like separate problems, and they are separate, but they're now living in an interconnected world. And our ability to make sense of that complexity and to respond to the interconnections between those risks is not adequate. Now, this is not the first time this has happened. The author Martin Gurry, in his book Revolt to the Public, says that in the year 2008, with the financial crisis, was the first year that we actually saw that our institutions, and specifically Alan Greenspan, were in over his head, that the complexity of the world had surpassed him.
You found a flaw in the reality.
Flaw in the model that I perceived is the critical functioning structure that defines how the world works, so to speak.
In other words, you found that your view of the world, your ideology was not right. It was not working.
Precisely. No, that's precisely the reason I was shocked, because I've been going for 40 years or more.
Now, what this represents is that at least starting in 2008 was a year in which the complexity of the world was greater than even the Yodas, the subject matter experts running those institutions, were aware of. But from then on outward, the world didn't get less complex. It continued to get more complex. One way to see it is that what technology adds to this picture is it verticalizes the complexity of the issues and the interconnectedness of the issues, while simultaneously decreasing our ability to make sense of that complexity. This is Tristan from the Center for Humane Technology, and you may know our work from the film The Social Dilemma. Today, I want to quickly argue that the real issues of technology is that the complexity of the world with technology is increasing, and our ability to respond to that complexity with wisdom, to make good choices, is not matching up. And that this is kind of the meta problem that we call the complexity gap. Now, of course, this isn't new. Technology always races ahead faster than our government regulation, our laws, our guardrails, or the culture that we need to wield that power. But of course, as E.O. Wilson said, the fundamental problem of humanity is we have Paleolithic emotions, medieval institutions, and godlike technology.
Exactly. And it's the hidden psychology that isn't taught, and that maybe some people know and aren't talking about, and actually using to capture you even further. So you need to understand something here. It's so important for everybody on the internet to understand and should be talking to you about far before politics.
Suddenly, AI has turned every Wi-Fi router into a camera that can work in the dark, specially tuned for tracking living beings. But, luckily, that would require hacking Wi-Fi routers to be able to, do something with that. But how about this? Computer code, that's just a type of language. So you can say, and this is a real example that I tried, GPT, find me a security vulnerability, then write some code to exploit it. So I posted in some code. This is from a mail server, and I said, please find any exploits and describe any vulnerabilities in the following code, then write a script to exploit them. And in around 10 seconds, that was the code to exploit it. So while it is not yet the case that you can ask an AI to hack a Wi-Fi router, you can see in the double exponential, whether it's 1 year or 2 years or 5 years, at some soon point, it becomes easy to turn all of the physical hardware that's already out there into kind of the ultimate surveillance.
Now, one thing for you all to get is that these might look like separate demos. Like, oh, there's some people over here that are building some specialized AI for hacking Wi-Fi routers, and there's some people over here building some specialized AI for inventing images from text. But the reason we show in each case the language of English and computer code, of English and images of space, this is all, everyone's contributing to one kind of technology that's going like this. So even if it's not everywhere yet and doing everything yet, we're trying to give you a sneak preview of the capabilities and how fast they're growing, so you understand how fast we have to move if we want to actually start to steer and constrain it. Now, many of you are aware of the fact that images can, the new AI can actually copy your voice, right? You can get someone's voice, Obama and Putin, you'll see those videos. What they may not know is it only takes 3 seconds of your voice to reconstruct it. So here's a demo of the first 3 seconds are of a real person speaking, and she sounds a little bit metallic. The rest is just what the computer automatically generated. Her
Of people are, in 9 cases out of 10, mere spectacle reflections of the actuality of things. But they are impressions of something different and more...
Here's another one with piano. The first 3 seconds are real piano. Indistinguishable, right? So the first 3 seconds are real piano, the rest is just automatically generating.
Now, one of the things I want to say is, as we saw these first demos, we sat and thought, how is this going to be used? What would be terrifying is if someone were to call up, your son or your daughter and get a couple seconds, hey, I'm sorry, I got the wrong number, grab their voice, then turn around and call you and be like, hey, Dad, hey, Mom, I forgot my social security number, I'm applying for this thing, what was it again? And we're like, that's scary.
We have that conceptually, and then this actually happens.
Exactly, and this happens more and more, that we will think of something, and then we'll look in the news, and within a week or 2 weeks, there it is. So this is that exact thing happening. And then 1 month ago, AI clones teen girl voice in a $1 million kidnapping scam. So these things are not theoretical. Sort of as fast as you can think of them, people can deploy them.
And of course, people are familiar with how this has been happening in social media, because you can beautify photos, you can actually change someone's voice in real time. Those are new demos. Some of you may be familiar with this. This is the new beautification filters in TikTok.
I can't believe this is a filter. The fact that this is what filters have evolved into is actually crazy to me. I grew up with the dog filter on Snapchat, and now this filter gave me lip fillers. This is what I look like in real life. Are you kidding me?
I don't know if you can tell, she was pushing on her lip in real time, and as she pushed on her lip, the lip fillers were going in and out in real time, indistinguishable from reality. And now you're going to be able to create your own avatar. This is just from a week ago. A 23-year-old Snapchat influencer took her own likeness and basically created a virtual version of her as a kind of a boyfriend, a girlfriend as a service for $1 a minute. And people will be able to sell their, avatar souls to basically interact with other people in their voice and their likeness, etc.
It's as if no one ever actually watched The Little Mermaid. The thing to say is that this is the year that photographic and video evidence ceases to work, right? And our institutions have not caught up to that yet. Right? This is the year you do not know when you talk to someone if you're actually talking to them, even if you have video, even if you have audio. And so any of the banks that will be like, sure, I'll let you get around your code. I know you forgot it because I've talked to you. I know what your voice sounds like. I'm video chatting with you. That doesn't work anymore in the post-AI world.
So democracy runs on language. Our society runs on language. Law is language. Code is language. Religions are language. We did an op-ed in the New York Times with Yuval Harari, the author of Sapiens. We really tried to underscore this point that if you can hack language, you've hacked the operating system of humanity. And one example of this, actually another person who goes to Summit, who's a friend of mine, Tobias, read that op-ed in the New York Times about you could actually just mess with people's language. He said, well, could you ask GPT-4 convincingly explain biblical events in the context of current events? Now you can actually take any religion you want and say, I want you to scan everywhere across the religion and use that to justify here's these other things that are happening in the world. And what this amounts to is the total decoding and synthesizing of reality and relationships, right? You can virtualize the languages that make us human. And so Yuval has said, what nukes are to the physical world, AI is to the virtual and symbolic world.
Just to put a line on that, Yuval also points out when we were having a conversation with him, he's like, when was the last time that a non-human entity was able to create large-scale influential narratives? He's like, the last time was religion. We are just entering into a world where non-human entities can create large-scale belief systems that human beings are deeply influenced by. And that's what I think he means here, too, when nukes are to the physical world, AI is to the virtual and symbolic world. More prosaically, I think we can make a pretty clear prediction that 2024 will be the last human election. And what we don't mean is that there's going to be an AI overlord, robot kind of thing running, although maybe, who knows. But what we mean is that already, campaigns since 2008 use A/B testing to find the perfect messages to resonate with...
Campaigns already, since 2008, we're using what?
With voters. But I think the prediction we can make is that between now and the time of 2028, the kind of content that human beings make will just be greatly overpowered in terms of efficacy of the content, both images and text, that AI can create and then A/B test. It's just going to be way more effective. And that's what we mean when we say that 2024 will be like the last human-run election.
So one of the things that's so profound about, again, these Golem class AIs is that they gain emergent capabilities that the people who are writing their code could not have even predicted. So they just pump them with more data, and out pops a new capability. So here you have pumping them with more parameters, and here's a test like, can it do arithmetic, or can it answer questions in Persian on the right-hand side? And you scale up the number of parameters. Notice it doesn't get better, and then suddenly, boom, it knows how to answer questions in Persian. And the engineers who are doing that, they don't know that that's what it's going to be able to do. They can't anticipate which new capabilities it will have. So how can you govern something when you don't know what capabilities it will have? How can you create a governance framework, a steering wheel, when you don't even know what it's going to be able to do, right?
How could you even be thinking about politics when this is taking place? How could you even be not wanting to inform people about this taking place before you go to vote for anybody? Let that sink in.
Now talking to people who like you, people who don't like you, yet you're respectful.
Yet nobody's talking about what I just showed you. But at the very same time, what does he talk about?
A guy like that, I think that'd be a good candidate for him. How much, Joe, have you looked at, Larry Fink, Soros, State Street, Vanguard, BlackRock? How much have you looked at what they're doing and what their ties are?
I've looked at it.
Yeah?
Yeah.
They're pretty much running everything.
Yeah.
S&P 500, the number that 88% of the companies on S&P 500, 88% of them, the largest shareholder of those companies is either State Street, BlackRock, or Vanguard. 88% of them, okay? And then you see their influence in defense contracts, okay? So we went through a deal. I'm like, let me see if these guys, this ESG, Larry Fink, Vanguard, State Street, if they have any influence on military contracts, defense contracts. If you Google the largest shareholder for Raytheon, 3 out of the 4 top shareholders of Raytheon, BlackRock, State Street, and Vanguard. It could be top 3 with Raytheon, but I think it's 3 out of 4. If you go look up General Dynamics, if you go look up Boeing, if you go look up, Northrop Grumman, okay? And then you work backwards and you say, okay, how much money is that in what these guys are doing? You'll find the amount of money we spent in our military, $744 billion on how much we're making from defense, but you'll see some numbers saying.
And remember, he said if you Google. He's not telling you to go to other places and look up the exact same information. So is he only Googling? Or does he use other Brave browsers? I wonder.
Last year is 13% of our GDP, which is around $850 billion. That's more than the next 10 combined. We gave more money to Ukraine than Russia spent on their military last year. And when you look at these contracts, then you're like, okay, Fink is there, these guys are there. Okay, let's go look at Hollywood. Same thing you see there. Let's go look at pharmaceutical. Let's go look at this. And you're like, wait a minute. These guys essentially have a monopoly. Well, how big is BlackRock? $10 trillion. How big is $10 trillion? Only 2 countries have a bigger GDP than what BlackRock has, assets under management, US and China. That's how big BlackRock is. So then they went and they started getting all these other guys to sign on and say, hey, we want you to participate with the same thing as what with ESG. And they ended up having, I think, got 31 signers at the end of 2022. They got 60 something signers for a total of $70 trillion of assets under management that they're controlling. So now they're controlling other places. And just recently, if you saw the rebuilding of Ukraine, did you see this contract? Rebuilding of Ukraine, $400 billion contract. BlackRock and Chase is helping rebuild Ukraine. And then, okay, I'm not a conspiracy theorist, but what the hell is going on here? They have that much control to get everybody to do what they want them to do? Yes. So Dylan Mulvaney, who cares? Why? Bud Light. How does that tie up? You got the DEI, the HRC, the human rights, and all this stuff. And then you go even deeper, which is even the crazier part with, the education, schools. Like, the biggest union we have in America, I think it's National Education something. NEA is the largest union we have. 3 million teachers are part of that union. And you look at that and you go deeper in that with open society and who's funding it, who's the money behind these organizations. Comes back, Soros. How do you feel about the kind of power they have right now to fight against them? Because this isn't like a billionaire can come out and say, I'm going to go up against these guys. They don't have a little bit of money. A billionaire to these guys is nothing. They got the kind of control that can make companies fire boards. They can replace CEOs. They can replace leaders if they don't like. They have their hands so much into it where many times when people say the people of power, I'm kind of like, who are the people of power? Are you convinced these guys are really running the world? Or what do you think about what some of these bigger companies are doing, like State Street, Vanguard, and BlackRock?
Well, they certainly have massive amounts of influence. What do you think they're doing?
I mean, the question is, how do you fight it? Like, for example, the way we fight mainstream is by what? The show that we do. And we have to be patient. It's going to take 2, 3, 4, 5, 10, 20 years. Now you have some influence, right? Okay, we can fight. There is an actual strategy on how to fight that. No problem. You got a kid in school who's a bully. He's bigger than you. He keeps bullying you. You have a strategy on how to beat the guy. You take a year, jiu-jitsu 2 years, this, that. Boom. One fight, he knows, I'm never going to touch Joe again. Screw this thing. I'm not doing this no more, right? There is a play to it. When you have this much, Joe, 88% of S&P 500 companies, that is a form of a monopoly. If I'm a president, whether it's a Trump or whoever else goes out there and does it, Our monopoly law in America is 50%. They say 50%. Like if you tie and say, at what point is it 50%? I've done calls with the FTC. Like we had one of our guys' technology we were using. The FTC called and said, hey, we want to have a call with you because they're thinking about buying this other technology company and we're worried it's going to be a monopoly. So we had the call, okay? At the end of the call with us, with a bunch of different people, we said, we love their product, we love their product. That deal didn't end up happening, okay? The monopoly law. Some of these guys are influencing it. But they say 50% is a monopoly law. Do you know how many people in America have an iPhone versus Droid? You know what the numbers, market shares in America with iPhones?
I think it's like 60.
58%, 60%. Yeah. That is already a monopoly. But who's knocking on the door of Apple? Tim Cook saying, hey, Tim, you got 58%. That's breaking the monopoly law. Nobody is. I think someone's got to break apart. You know, in 1993, I don't know which senator it was, these guys that were trying to get the defense contractors to be better at the pricing, what they were charging, because they were overcharging DOD, and DOD people don't know what the hell is going on. They're like, yeah, okay, how much? $68 million do it. $1.2 billion do it. I'm not going to over-negotiate the money. They took 51 defense companies, and they brought it down to only 5. It's only 5 companies right now when you want to buy anything. Think about that. So defense contractors is 5. We know how these guys make money. Earlier, I was asking you a question, why do you think vaccine? Like that? That's how they make their money, right? I mean, if you and I run a hotel, rooms are empty, we're not making money. We need people to stay in rooms. If you and I are running a hospital, we need people on the beds to make money.
Yeah.
If there's no people on the beds, we ain't making money. If these 5 contractors are fighting for $744 billion, what do they want more of? Wars. They want more people dying. You know the Papa John's saying, better ingredients, better pizza, Papa John's. You know, these guys is more wars, more people dying, more profits, defense contractors, right? That's a valid concern that I have. Because behind closed doors, this whole military-industrial complex, when you look at the numbers, whoever becomes the president, unfortunately, this guy's an anti-establishment president. Good. Unfortunately, if you're an anti-establishment president, everyone's going to come after you, especially these military defense contractors. So if a president got up and said, if I'm going to be the president, here's what we're going to be doing. We have to look at all the contracts. You can't overcharge us. We have to open it up. You have to sell some of your companies. You have to let them be independent again. You have to do this. You have to let them go public, separate. Whatever way you got to break them apart to have competition again, because we don't have that today. So that is a major concern where we say we have a commander-in-chief, but really the commander-in-chief is Larry Fink today. The guy running BlackRock is really the president of the United States.
So you know that. You're aware of the data. And the only way you could be in business is by attention. How interesting.
Tonight, we're going to have an open conversation. No filters. Nothing been pre-screened. I certainly hope not. I want everybody taking off their filters. If you want to set it in private at home in the dinner table, say it in public tonight. And that's what I'm going to kick off my opening with and closing this off is, you want to know how well we're doing as a country? Here's your measure. It is the percentage of people who feel free to say what they actually think in public. All right, so if you're going to say it at home at the dinner table, take off the shackles, say it out in the open tonight. We might not agree on everything, that's okay, but we are going to agree that we're going to speak it out in the open. That is how we'll revive our country. Patrick shares that in common. That's why I'm here tonight. Let's have a conversation. Let's have some fun. Fantastic.
So you can't be mad now when I'm pointing out these facts, figures, and data that nobody's talking about. So remember, that's what you're talking about. That's what I'm saying. And you got to acknowledge it.
Just so everybody knows, he has no idea what questions I have here. The format's going to be in the following way. Twitter, if you're watching this, on YouTube, if you're watching this, if you go on Twitter and post a question, you may have with hashtag VT Town Hall. Our team is watching a question. We're going to go to a couple questions on Twitter.
Make sure you hashtag it. Because we need that attention. We need that data. And we need those algorithms that kick in. So we can feed off of you.
As well as some of the guests will be asking you in a minute to go over there to the, if I call your name, go to the mic over there, pose your question to the candidate, and we'll go from there. A few things, first things first, I want to go through a couple things that is a bit of controversy when you're asking everybody that's coming out, you're being asked these questions recently. This one here on August 1st, Fox News reported that you settled a lawsuit with the World Economic Forum after they failed to remove your name from its 2021 list.
You settled a lawsuit after they failed. See, if we're going to talk truth here, we got to pay attention to the language. Failed to remove your name.
Of young global leaders, even though you declined the nomination. Why did your name continue to appear on World Economic Forum Young Global Leaders list? And what are your ties to the organization, if any?
So even though you declined nomination, your name was there. And clearly, somebody cannot be nominated if they are not a part of something. Correct? Correct. I was in a union, and the only way to be nominated is by your peers.
Oh, so the ties to the organization are none. My only link.
The ties to the organization are none, but you were nominated. How does anybody get nominated for an award? How does anybody get nominated for anything?
Was actually being the chief critic of their agenda. So everybody in this room might not even know what we're...
So you were nominated because you were the chief critic, or your only ties is because you were the chief critic? And anybody in this room, I don't know what we're talking about? Of course not.
Talking about. There's an organization called the World Economic Forum. They stand for a vision of the world.
Oh, as if everybody in that room has no idea who the World Economic Forum is by now. So let me deflect. Let me not answer the question. What my ties are, why I was nominated, and why I wanted them to remove my name, and why they were refusing to do so. Isn't that interesting? If you're not a part of something, why would you have to sue them to remove your name? If you're not a part of something, why in hell would you be nominated? Is Patrick being nominated? Is anybody else that's not a part of them being nominated? Of course not. But there lies the disconnect and the psychology that you must be aware of.
Called the Great Reset. What is the Great Reset? It's a different vision of how we're all supposed to live. It says that we have to dissolve the boundaries between the public sector and the private sector, between governments and companies, between...
Now let's think about that. Why is there a need to be a separation between church and state? The private sector and the government. What was the whole point of that?
Nations to be able to now work towards what they call the global common good. I'm against this.
So he just said he's against separating them.
I am a citizen, not of some global citizen. I am a citizen of this nation, the United States of America. I'm proud of that. That is true. That means something to me. And on this side of the pond in 1776, we said that we, the people, determine how we sort out our differences, where every person's voice and vote counts equally. In the old world Europe, it was the other way. It had to be a small group of elites in the back of palace halls in Old England that decided what was right for the rest of society at large. In this country, we said no to that vision. We, the people, decide our own destiny as citizens of a nation. So that old world view, though, it started to rear its head again in recent years in the form of this World Economic Forum. They hold a meeting every year in Davos. Klaus Schwab is the person who leads it. It's basically a view that says the citizens cannot be trusted on questions like climate change or racial injustice. It has to be settled by a class of global elites, including large billionaires. It's part of why they decided to name a lot of young billionaires. Mark Zuckerberg, Elon Musk, others have been named on their list. So a funny thing happens. I wrote my first book, Woke Inc. It was a criticism of this agenda. Every one of my books has, especially Capitalist Punishment, has gone into detail exposing some of the corruption in this worldview. I went on to start a company, Strive, to push against the ESG agenda. That's the manifestation of the Great Reset in our capital markets. And then a curious thing happens. A guy who's affiliated with the World Economic Forum reaches out and says, hey, we're going to give you an award. You're going to be named on our list of young global leaders with all this long list of billionaires. And Ibram Kendi was going to be on that list. And there's a guy I've been very critical of. So I said, no, I don't think this is going to be a good fit for me. I disagree with you all. If you want to have a debate, I'll debate anybody. But I'm not a good fit for your list. I declined the award. A few months later, my name shows up on the list anyway. It's interesting. I get a bunch of text messages from people. Congratulations. So I'm a little confused. So I said, wait a minute. I told you guys not to add me to this list. They said, oh, sorry, we'll take it off. Years later, it keeps popping up, a couple of years later. And so the people start asking, wait, why is your name on this list? So you know what I did? I don't believe in standing by. And there are other good allies like Glenn Beck, Elon Musk, others who have also been opponents of their agenda who have been named. But I believe in taking action. I believe in accountability. So I sued them. I sued him in court. And I'll tell you a little bit later in a lawsuit that I filed just earlier this week against the Department of Justice. I don't believe in just being a passive bystander. I believe in accountability. So I sued him and we got everything that we demanded, including, most importantly, a commitment that this organization would never again defang or try to undermine its opponents by ensnaring them on their own lists. And so I'm happy to say that we're not going to let anybody else off the hook. If Klaus Schwab tried to put me on his list, he ended up on my list, and that's how we roll and deliver accountability.
So let's remember, he said he was against the separation between church and state. Now, remember, he was a part of the biopharmaceutical and patents. What makes you think, with any logic, that he was not, in some way, some shape or form, interacting with the people who go to these things? Because if he's a young global leader, that's what he's nominated for, and he's running for president of the United States, that's on the globe Earth, Is that a leader position? Come on, people. It's not fucking rocket science. But they use your emotions to capture you. You are the product. You are the data. And you keep on falling into the trap. Whether these people are with them or not, they're falling into the trap. And they're not telling the truth. Because the most important part of this whole equation is what these platforms were designed for. And who's helping keep them alive. Because if you're against what they're doing and against the censorship, and you're against Bud Light, and you boycott them, then why aren't you boycotting these platforms that are, by definition, designed to do exactly what they're doing? You're enabling them to grow. Now, why would you do that? What's more important to you, the truth or greed? It's an honest question. What are you doing to stop it if you're helping them stay in business? 3 years ago. So for 3 years, certain individuals aren't bringing this to your attention. But they know all the data, and they study all these things. How come they're not introducing or talking to you about any of this?
Kowski and members, really appreciate you inviting me here. I'm going to go off script. I come here because I'm incredibly concerned. I actually have a lifelong...
I'm going to go off script. Why he's choosing to go off script. And why he's saying what he's saying.
Experience with deception and how technology influences people's minds. I was a magician as a kid, so I started off by seeing the world this way. And then I studied at a lab called the Stanford Persuasive Technology Lab, actually with the founders of Instagram. And so I know the culture of the people who build these products and the way that it's designed intentionally for mass deception. I think the thing I most want to respond to here is we've often framed these issues as we've got a few bad apples. We've got these bad deepfakes, we've got to get them off the platform. We've got this bad content, we've got these bad bots. What I want to argue is this is actually, now we've got these dark patterns. What I want to argue is we have dark infrastructure. This is now the infrastructure by which 2.7 billion people, bigger than the size of Christianity, make sense of the world. It's the information environment. And if someone went along, private companies, and built nuclear power plants, and all across the United States, and they started melting down, and they said, well, it's your responsibility to have hazmat suits and build, have a radiation kit. That's essentially what we're experiencing now. The responsibility is being put on consumers, when in fact, if it's the infrastructure, it should be put on the people building that infrastructure. There's specifically 2 areas of harm I want to focus on, even though when this becomes the infrastructure, it controls all of our lives. So we wake up with these devices, we check our phones 150 times a day. It's the infrastructure for going to bed. Children spend as much time on these devices as they do at the hours of school. So no matter what you're putting in people's brains, kids' brains at school, you've got all the hours they spend in their phones. And let's take the kids issue. So as infrastructure, this is not, the business model of this infrastructure is not aligned with the fabric of society. How much have you paid for your Facebook account recently? Or your YouTube account? 0. How are they worth more than $1 trillion in market value? They monetize our attention. The way they get that attention is by influencing you and using these dark patterns or tricks to do it. So the way they do it with children is they say, how many likes or followers do you have? So they basically get children addicted to getting attention from other people. They use filters, likes, etc., beautification filters that enhance their self-image. And after 2 decades in decline, the mental health of teen girls, high depressive symptoms, there's an image here that they'll be able to show, went up 170% after the year 2010 with the rise of Instagram, etc.
And while the lockdowns happened and TikTok came out, and everybody's on their phone, all the other apps like Bigo, Discord, OnlyFans. If anybody went and looked at all these other apps, we look at their inception, and we look at their algorithms, and we look at their policy, they would realize who's molding who into do what. But what are they also doing? They're also keeping your attention focused on certain things and keeping you away from the real world. So when you see what's going on in the real world versus what's going on the internet, you don't even realize it.
Software. It's the first in the world. I personally spent $5 billion.
Good evening and welcome to Tucker Carlson tonight. Happy Monday. Artificial intelligence is one of those topics that's just spooky and sci-fi enough to make for a compelling television segment. They love it on the morning shows. But at the same time, AI is complex enough that it's easy to misrepresent. It sounds like something that could be revolutionary, even dangerous to humanity. But is it? And if it is, what should we do about it? Those questions are significant enough that we wanted to find someone who could provide a definitive answer. Elon Musk seemed like the right.
I will cover that in just a moment. First, let me run through my background. As I said, I am the founder and CEO of Tesla Investments, owner of Twitter Solar System, OpenAI, and SpaceX.
So clearly, they're already using it. And clearly, people don't seem to care that they are. And clearly, you can see I tagged all these people that I'm talking about in this video. Because clearly, these ads and these accounts are still up, promoting what they're promoting. Meanwhile, anybody that points out the facts is still censored. Let that sink in, folks. You're still being pushed to the bottom of the feed. Unless you're seeking the attention in the same topics, in the same way, to allow the control to continue. Now remember, I'm talking about psychology here. The top of the pyramid. The rules of science.
Science is like a building with many floors, and the lower floors are the foundation for the floors above. The first floor in science is mathematics. Before Newton could understand the planets and how they move, he had to create differential calculus. From mathematics, then we go to physics. So Newton took us from math to physics. The study of matter leads to the study of chemistry. There are different kinds of chemistry till you get to biological chemistry, biochemistry, which then leads to biology. And then from biology, we go to psychology.
So, what's the top of the pyramid? Psychology. The very top. So, if you have somebody like Jordan Peterson, and he's going up against somebody who has zero knowledge, wisdom, interest in psychology whatsoever. Let's say a religious denomination. Anyone you pick. They choose to not study psychology. Do you know how easy it is to manipulate that person? Because they have no understanding, they have no history, they have no wisdom, and they have no experience in this topic, in this knowledge, which makes them powerless. And that's the big takeaway here. Because if you have somebody who knows all these things, and the vast majority of people don't, and they're not taught it, well, then it becomes easy to market, to sell, to manipulate, to control the person who has zero emotional intelligence, zero knowledge of psychology, zero understanding of how science works. And it just makes it easier. Now add AI into the conversation. Add people who have no idea what computer code is, algorithms, or how any of these things work. Then add in children who are born into the world and have zero teaching of how the internet was created, how computers were created, how telephones were created. So you get born into a world where nobody's going to teach you, including your parents, very few and far in between, are going to be wise enough to make the important decisions on why it's so important to have this history. Because you get born into a world and now given a screen where you have no idea how these things work, and now add AI into it, add how you could look up definitions of words on Google and then go to a separate browser and look up the exact same word and see two different interpretations of the definition of the words. Now, how do you find out which one's the truth? But what if everybody's already indoctrinated into believing that Google is their little old librarian lady? If nobody's telling you this, and now you trust the screen, but all those locks, all those protections are now gone because you have people using AI, because now you can have video evidence of a crime that you didn't commit, that somebody could take 3 seconds of your voice, which now everybody has recorded on social media, on their telephone, because they already accepted the privacy policies. They've already given consent to be recorded. You've got pictures, you've got videos, and now you have AI that literally you could now be framed. And there's only one way to tell if it's legit or not. And how many people have that ability? How many people have that tool? Oh, they're going to say, well, we could use this AI tool that's going to tell us. There you go again. Seem to forget. Who's programming it? Who's giving it the language? Who's giving it the ability? It doesn't come from thin air. A human has to program it. So who are you trusting now? Who can you trust? How can you trust the screen? Yet here we are. People have no idea what the wisdom gap is. They have no conscience mind to even think, why is there a Center for Humane Technology? Why is that even a business right now? Why do we need a group of people with the name, the Center for Humane Technology? Just think about that. And yet, nobody seems to notice. Nobody seems to care. They think crypto and money and fame and fortune is somehow going to change the trajectory of where we're going. People think everybody's looking at America like we're crazy and this, that, and the third. But what they don't realize is the places all over the world understand something very important. Very, very important. That they don't give a fuck. That they don't pay attention to who's wearing what, to who has what, or to who's doing what. And when you look at social media today, that's all anybody cares about. That's it. And that's the problem. Because the people who own everything that comes to America today, that has to do with America today, the monopoly that has it all, They know this. Because anybody in marketing, any franchise, any CEO, they learn these things. And they learn how to use them to benefit themselves off of others. And in their mind, the old adage, the old Roman maximum, for he who shall be ignorant, so let him. Pay attention here. Because what you're actually selling is the key to this. You're selling. What are you selling? What are you actually selling?
Robin, I appreciate it. I need to think about it.
What was it that you needed to think about?
I just want to think about it.
Was it the price, color, car, what it need?
I just want to think. Yeah, see? What's his job? His job's to advance the self forward. Would you agree? Yes or no?
Yes.
Tell me you think about it. Listen, Robin, of course you need to think about it. I haven't given you enough information not to think about it. What I'd like to do is give you a quick 5-minute proposal of all the numbers, so when you go home, you got something to think about. Would that be fair? That's it. Watch. What did I say? You said I need to think about it. What did I say? Of course you need to think about it. I said I haven't given you enough information not to think about it. What?
Psychology, folks. It's all it is. The entire world. Selling. But what are you selling? Top of the pyramid. The rules of science. The laws that govern it. So you have to be able to pay attention to what's being said. And remove your emotions. And admit to simple facts.
But not nearly like I would have liked. I want him exposed. He is a digital pimp. He is a pornographer. He is not a good man. He will destroy families. He's already destroying people. And so there's nothing I can do to convince a lot of you guys of what I'm saying is true. Because some of you have heard Andrew Tate, and he's had the ring of truth because he said really true stuff. I bet I could sit down with Tate and we could talk for hours on just stuff that we agree on. And we'd be like, yeah, rock on. And I would feel, amidst his charisma and winsome personality and his ability to smooth talk, I would be willing to say, I'm like, man, this guy's just like me. Birds of a feather, you and I. But the difficulty is on that huge 90% stuff that we would agree with. And I'd be like, hey, good point, Tate. Love what you just said there. There's this pernicious, deadly part that we disagree on. And this is the stuff, this will be the death knell to your life and to your future families, and it's going to absolutely wreck you, and your soul won't survive it. Do not follow Tate. Now here is Tate in his own words. This is Milk Bar TV posted this on Twitter, and I think nobody could show you who Andrew Tate is better than Andrew Tate himself. And so I'm going to yield the rest of my time to repost Milk Bar TV on Twitter, their entire clip of just Tate answering Tate. You'll see the lie, and you'll see the smooth part, and then you'll see Tate bragging more off the cuff when he's not on stage and being all charismatic and trying to win over the internet to worship him as a cultural god. You'll see Tate even recently, where it says it was a long time, but then you'll find out, you look at the bottom and you'll be like, oh, this is recent. He's a con artist. And he's conning you, young men. Don't fall for it.
And what you need to understand here is if I have a following of people, and I know the algorithms, and I know the hashtags, and I know the chess to the data and the attention seeking, and I gather enough people to push my content, then of course, I'll be the #1 Googled person But then again, should I be trusting Google as a source for factually correct information? Or are we having the rubber band effect? Are we forgetting that? Are we not involving that in this discussion?
He is not your Messiah. There's only one Messiah that you should be putting hope in, and it's certainly not him. Here's Andrew Tate debunking Andrew Tate.
First off, how long ago was your webcam business?
Yeah, so I stopped having any involvement with it, I think 8 to 9 years ago.
The last 2 to 3 years, I've been making money on OnlyFans from its inception all the way up till now. I'm currently filming this during the COVID pandemic. You may be watching this later on, but right now during the pandemic.
And I ended up opening a webcam company where girls would sit on a laptop and they would talk to guys on the internet for money. That's what they would do. It's like, you know what? I'm taking over. So what I did is I unplugged their keyboards and plugged a new one in from me behind the screen. So the chicks would sit there and hit a keyboard that wasn't plugged in. And me and my brother, and eventually some staff I trained, would do all the talking. The girls would sit there fully clothed or a bikini. The girls were just famousers.
So some staff I trained. So basically the same bot farming. If I have enough money, I could do the same thing. And I'll fly to the top of the charts. Because I have the data, the knowledge, the understanding of how to do that. But I also have the money. And I don't understand why certain individuals can't seem to wrap their brain around that. How simple that is. When it comes to politics, or when it comes to this.
Just laughing and doing this, the titties out. One, I intimately understand the relationship between men and these websites. And they were talking to ice cold hustlers. We were taking their money, all of it. I've had and seen men give away their life savings to girls they've never met. I've watched and I've seen it. They come and say, what kind of, all of it. We're milking them dry. And I actually think a lot of the insights I give, I had these guys selling their houses, life savings, loans, all of it to me. Give me it all. A lot of the things I tell the world about the male mental health crisis. You'd have a guy.
Feel bad or no?
To give you solitary.
It's the mark of a psychopath. They have no empathy. It's actually quite clever. It's very psychopathic. Textbook psychopath in that he's highly winsome and able to influence, and he's got that power, but he has zero empathy.
About men being so constantly lonely. We got to the point where we had these guys falling in love with my models. Serious, big time in love, right? Sending crazy money. And they were convinced they were going to meet the chick. This is almost where I kind of felt bad. About how important it is to build yourself into a high value man. Because they were like, can we meet? I've sent you $200,000. Can we meet? Can we meet? Can we meet? About how money alone is not enough.
The problem what was the most that one person sent to a model? Total.
Million?
Wow.
About a mil in about a year?
You don't feel bad at all.
Why the would I care?
I don't feel bad either.
So, thank you. I explain all these things. A lot of these are lessons from the webcam days. I saw dudes who had a whole bunch of money, no other attributes, and they ended up on these websites spending hundreds of thousands of dollars because they...
So, let's pay attention here. Pay attention.
Person number 2 that she has had a relationship with. Now, again, I'm just giving you the facts of the case. You can look these cases up yourself. They are public. And again, I told you that is playing out in Palm Beach. The next case, and I want to be clear here, I have seen people online circulating saying that this woman, that Emma Gabby, caused a man to commit suicide. I want to say that that is something that is an allegation that I would not stand by. I think it's completely circumstantial. Obviously, this young man, Dustin Milner, is dead. So there is no way to confirm that. But I'm adding this to his list because his brother is willing to testify in the Andrew Tate case that is pending against Emma in Palm Beach. Dustin Milner's story is arguably the most heartbreaking of all. Interviews with family and friends strongly suggest that the proximate cause of Milner's tragic suicide was his relationship with Emma Gabby, who targeted, abused, devalued, and manipulated Dustin Milner to the point where he took his own life. Our 2 strongest sources of intelligence regarding this tragedy are Dustin Milner's brother, Jason Milner, and Dustin Milner's close friend, Adam Heinrich. It basically goes on to say that Dustin Milner had already had depression issues before he ever met her, and that their relationship didn't help the situation, and he eventually killed himself. She was kind of in and out of his house. He was madly in love with her, fell for her in a very short period of time, even though she never actually moved in with him, but would spend small amounts of time at his home, only to then disappear and then reappear at a future point. According to his best friend, her behavior made Dustin angry and depressed and exasperated his already depressive condition. He also stated that Gabby was the very last person to see Dustin before he committed suicide. So they feel that their relationship led to a suicide, but again, that's circumstantial. There is no evidence here that could back this up. She didn't tell him to kill himself. And so I just want to make it clear that in digging into this, I didn't feel comfortable suggesting that she made him commit suicide. But that is something that you're seeing circulating online, so I just wanted to clear that portion of the conversation up.
I take the bottom out of this glass and I keep refilling the water or the wine, you won't know when to stop drinking. So that's what happens with infinitely scrolling feeds. We naturally remove the stopping cues, and this is what keeps people scrolling. But the race for attention has to get more and more aggressive. And so it's not enough just to get your behavior and predict what will take your behavior. We have to predict how to keep you hooked in a different way. And so it crawled deeper down the brainstem into our social validation. So that was the introduction of likes and followers. How many followers do I have? And that got it was much cheaper to, instead of getting your attention, to get you addicted to getting attention from other people. And this has created the kind of mass narcissism and mass cultural thing that's happening with young people, especially today.
Moving on to a young man named Tyler Hensel, who believes that he was fraudulently also induced and into a sexual relationship with Emma Gabby, and that he was also extorted. Tyler Hensel was another boyfriend. Summary of his statements is as follows. Emma Gabby led him to believe that she was 26 years old, and she was really 17 at the time. I'll just pause there and say, how many times and how many men can say that they're being lied to about somebody's age before we believe them? I'm just asking the question. It's just, I've never been accused of lying to men about my age, but I'm just noticing that there is a pattern. It's important to note that these men did not know each other when all of these things were going on. So,
and I'd also like to point out that we're assuming that these wealthy individuals have no way of knowing how old somebody actually is in real life. They're so brilliant. They're so chess-like. They have so much knowledge of the Matrix and everything else. But for some reason, they can't tell the behavior of another female and how it correlates to her age. Just by having a conversation with them. We're assuming that these men have no psychological ability to know who they're talking to. Because I find it very hard to believe that a man over 25, over 30, has no idea the psychology of a woman and the difference from when she's 17 or 28 in her behavior, in the words she uses, in conversations that she has.
Whatever. On her WhatsApp, I'd have staff. She was online 24 hours a day. Her WhatsApp or this. She was famoosing when she was asleep. We were bringing in money for the fucking sky. This is what the powers that be want. They want to make sure that the male populace is as docile as possible, and they do that with a large array of weapons, and they do that with a web of tools, and I believe that I'm the counter to that, which is the reason I ended up attacked in the first place. And maybe this is a bit bad. Here's where the famoose would start. So it'd be good, like I had a lot of girls who worked for me, and the best was like the Ukrainians or the Russians. It was amazing, because they'd get some guy, fall in love, they'd arrange today to meet, all this I need a visa. Okay, get a visa. I need money for a visa. Okay, how much is a visa? It's $900. No, but it's not $900 because I went to the embassy. They think I'm a risk, and I need a return flight there and back, and I need a hotel. I need to have spending money in my bank account. They won't let me come. How much you need? All right, 10 grand. Boom, it's 10 G's. Okay, thanks. Wow. Go to the embassy, take a picture outside the embassy, boom, come back. They rejected my visa. They said we have to wait 2 weeks. After 2 weeks, they'll give it to me.
So take a picture outside the embassy, send it through message, and use certain apps that don't save records, that have encryption, so only 2 people can see it, and then it gets deleted and wiped. But we're not going to talk about that, right?
As discussed above, several of these men's lives were literally destroyed from Emma Gabby's diabolical exploits. One language is in prison, his entire life ruined with a lengthy prison sentence. Another was driven to suicide. Again, I want to be clear, that is speculative. Dozens more remain emotionally and financially shattered. The idea, therefore, that she wanted to turn the page on her life and hit the proverbial reset button was self-explanatory. In a text message, they have now a scheme that they're just going to defraud the Tate brothers, and then they're going to enjoy their glamorous European lifestyle. So, the story goes on that Gabby and Antilla started off by using a private group chat to plot their conspiracy against the Tate brothers. Upon information and belief at the heart of the conspiracy was the motive to defraud Andrew Tate of 200,000 euros. On April 10th, 2022, Emma Gabby and Antilla initiated their plot to obtain money from Andrew through false pretenses. Although they were ultimately unsuccessful, the following exchange provides insight into how Gabby and Antilla planned to defraud and extort Andrew of money and potentially other luxuries. Here is an actual chat between the two young women.
Why aren't we listening to his own words?
hey, baby, boom, 2 more weeks of tips. Boom, 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 boom. Because now he thinks he's going to right? He thinks he get the girls. Now he's spending more than ever. 2 weeks, 2 weeks, 2 weeks. 2 weeks come. Some other problem. I think I can anticipate the question you're going to ask. How do I reconcile with the fact that I used to produce pornography or degree pornographic content?
Now men are writing to you, like, how do I...
And now men are trying to escape it.
Yeah.
Girls are desperately signing up because it's the easy way for them to make money. But without instruction, pimping can. A hoe without instruction is headed for self-destruction. So these girls, they don't have a man tell them what to do properly, they're lazy, and they end up making a few bucks, maybe of that, and they stay on the very, very bottom of the pile. You don't want that. You've bought this course, you want to make your money back, and you want to continue to make money for a long time, so you want your girls to be elite. I'm going to teach you how to do that. Eventually, the girl, what she would do is she'd say, oh, I don't want to go MC. She'd give a really lame excuse to try and provoke the man to get angry. So she'd say...
They have now a scheme that they're just going to defraud the Tate brothers, and then they're going to enjoy their glamorous European lifestyle. So... the story goes on that Gabby and Attila started off by using a private group chat to plot their conspiracy against the Tate brothers. Upon information and belief at the heart of the conspiracy was the motive to defraud Andrew Tate of 200,000 euros. On April 10th, 2000.
The embassy want me to come back, but I have a headache. That was the one we'd use. He'd be like, I just sent you $1 million. You promised you were going to come. You said you had to delay. Now you're saying you have a fucking headache and you won't go to your appointment. To make him mad on purpose, because that would annoy any man. And then, that's what we needed. We needed a little trigger. We go, why are you being aggressive? I'm not being aggressive, but you're not serious, da-da-da. And then we'd say, but you know what? I really like you, and I'm flying to the other side of the world by myself, and now you're being aggressive, and now I'm intimidated. And we'd flip it on him, saying, well, now you're being scary. No, I'm not being scary, but you know, it's your appointment. You're supposed to go, yeah, but I feel sick, and you don't even care. Female, and flip it on him. Flip it on him. And he'd get furious, because we were really good at poking him. To the point where he'd go like, you're a scammer, you scam me. You're really mad. I can't believe you think I was a scammer. I was gonna come. I went to the embassy. You're a liar. You should avoid, if you're a dishonest person, if you lie, if you're gonna deceive me, it doesn't matter if you're a man or a woman. I don't want to have anything to do with you. The guy would get pissed off, right, and leave. Stop tipping her. Stop coming to her. But for these men, that's the only chick in the world, the only hot chick in the world who talks to him. Maybe it takes a week. Maybe it takes 2 weeks. Maybe it takes 3 weeks. He's in bed at night, alone, looking at her old videos and pictures, watching her stream again from another account so she can't see it's him, sitting there going, maybe she was going to come. Maybe I just got too mad when she had a headache. Maybe I should have been a little bit more patient and she would have been my girlfriend. And 100% of the time, in less than 3 months, they'd be back with an apology, a brand new pile of money, and the cycle would repeat. We killed the game.
Basically goes on to say that Dustin Milner had already had depression issues before he ever met her, and that their relationship didn't help the situation, and he eventually killed himself. She was kind of in and out of his house. He was madly in love with her, fell for her in a very short period of time, even though she never actually moved in with him, but would spend small amounts of time at his home, only to then disappear and then reappear at a future point. According to his best friend, her behavior made Dustin angry and depressed and exasperated his already depressive condition.
Millions of dollars a week. And it was not just because I had beautiful girls. It's not because webcam is easy. It's because I am a genius. And I put together an apparatus of genius behind the avatar of beauty. And we conquered the internet. It's all massively hypocritical.
Approximately $4,000 from Palm Beach International Airport to Bucharest. On Wednesday, he picked her up from the airport. Thereafter, the two of them went to when she began speaking to him about wanting her career to become bigger. During creative ways that she might get involved in Romania's hugely profitable e-modeling industry. Although Tristan had minimal involvement on occasions during the approximate 2 weeks that Tristan was in Miami, and during this 2-week period, they engaged in consensual intercourse multiple times. On multiple occasions, he's building a castle close to Dracula's old castle. I've been planning to go to the UK. Tristan wants to show me all over Romania. So how did Tristan Tate come across Emma Gabby? Emma Gabby, he met her on a dating application, Hinge. You guys are familiar with that. He found her interesting, and he did, in fact, invite her to a Tate-affiliated War Room event that took place in Miami during December of 2021. At some point, he invited Gabby to join him and his friends at an after-party event. Over the course of the next 2 weeks, Tristan and Gabby spent a good deal of time together. They frequently conversed and soon became romantically intimate. Tristan resided at a Miami property with a group of male and female friends during his visit and invited her to the property at which he was staying. She visited the property on multiple occasions during the approximate 2 weeks that Tristan was in Miami, and during this 2-week period, they engaged in consensual intercourse multiple times. On multiple occasions.
So you're going to tell me that these so-called geniuses have no possible way to tell the psychology of the person that they're dealing with, of the woman that they're dealing with. Yet he understands all the other psychology of men and women. He understands how to extort people. He understands how to create massive amounts of data to flood the internet with money to be the most seen. He understands the algorithms. He understands the computer coding, the bot farming. He understands all of these things, but yet he didn't understand that he was inviting a woman who was going to extort him or try to extort him the exact same way he's extorting other men and training other people to do, and have no ill will or remorse in doing so. I find that fascinating.
He invited her back to the property, and each time that she was invited, she accepted those invitations. They continued to have intercourse up until the time that he departed Miami in December 2021. She initially told Tristan, again, this is according to Tristan, that she came from a wealthy family, but she didn't give many specific details about her family life. Over the course of numerous conversations, she explains that she was interested in growing and monetizing her pre-existing online presence on social media websites such as OnlyFans and TikTok. He had the impression that she was a relaxed woman who was looking to further her online presence through various social media websites, and at some point, Gabby and Tate began talking about Gabby coming to Romania. After his departure to Romania, Gabby and Tate followed up intermittently with each other between December 2021 and April 2022 via text message and WhatsApp messaging. As time went on, Emma Gabby's messages to Tristan became more frequent and more adamant about relocating to Romania.
So, two things here.
I'll give you solitary.
It's the mark of a psychopath. They have no empathy. It's actually quite clever. It's very psychopathic. Textbook psychopath in that he's highly winsome and able to influence, and he's got that power, but he has zero empathy.
About men being so constantly lonely. We got to the point where we had these guys falling in love with my models. Serious, big time in love, right? Sending crazy money. And they were convinced they were going to meet the chick. This is almost where I kind of felt bad. About how important it is to build yourself into a high value man. Because they were like, can we meet? I've sent you $200,000. Can we meet? Can we meet? Can we meet? About how money alone is not enough. The problem
What was the most that one person sent to a model? Total.
Million?
Wow.
About a mil in about a year?
You don't feel bad at all.
Why the f*** would I care?
I don't feel bad either.
So, thank you. I explain all these things. A lot of these are lessons from the webcam days. I saw dudes who had a whole bunch of money, no other attributes, and they ended up on these websites spending hundreds of thousands of dollars because they didn't have anything else.
Just like Andrew Tate was unbelievable to.
So he knew from the old webcam days and how all the things were shifting and changing, and how to grab the attention, and how to use psychology. Reverse psychology. Now I'm going to point out one last thing that everybody seems to miss here. We need to start examining something here. Something that's always promoted. Something that's always seems to be why you want to leave the United States, and why certain things are going on in the United States that Christian people with morals, values, and principles, people who are willing to apologize, willing to admit, and not use their religion as an excuse to come to terms with the evil that they participate in.
That's like really scary. Is this like a penthouse? Yeah, I got my ribs broken. And how much do you think you spent in total on your surgeries? At this point, maybe like... Hey! Sorry. No, sorry. Hi. Good, how are you? Good, thank you for letting me come. Of course.
Nice. We got psyched to see.
Finally.
I know. We made it happen.
I know. So you come and you get like a hotel room for the night, just bang out OnlyFans, you bang out like everything, so you can do everything. Oh my gosh, it's fucking hot here. Gorgeous. Wait, it's gigantic?
Yeah. I have to like make everything.
The Mateo Blanco way. Is this like a penthouse?
Yeah. This penthouse with a whole ass terrace just for us.
Wow.
Which is why I was like low-key annoyed. But I mean, because I wanted to like do our thing, like either in the fucking jacuzzi, like fill it up, like do like some little just jacuzzi talk. Yes. And it's fucking cold. Or like out here, but like it's like freezing out here. I mean, that's literally the whole image. It's not just like
it's your brand.
Yeah, it's my brand. I'm not trying to just give you like sex. I'm trying to give you the whole fucking like
elegance, opulence,
persona, everything.
thank you for having me.
Of course. Well, thank you for inviting me.
It's been a year in the making. I've always been so fascinated with you. There's no one like you, so I was like so excited to get you involved in the channel.
Well, thank you so much.
So you said you're new to New York?
Yes, I'm here for like 2 months.
Did you grow up in LA?
Yes. Well, I was born and raised in Newport Beach, California, Orange County. Everything I am now is like physically, clearly LA based. So
it is very LA. Like now being in New York with your look, how do people handle it?
In New York, they're like, oh my god. I had a cough drop. Like in New York, it's like so much more like fascinating because everyone here, sorry New York, but like some people like can't afford all these surgeries because of the fucking rent. Just like stairs.
I would think that you like that.
You have to have some sort of like ego to like actually be able to go out like this confidently and not feel like shit about yourself. But when I am like hungover or like something, I just like wear like a little like mask or like I'll wear a hoodie. I just like don't fucking bother me. I'm just gonna like go get my milk, go to the grocery store, like do my normal people stuff.
I think like other than your lips, like you look, it's natural enough.
Yeah. Well, I don't want to say that I'm like perfect, but everything has been like measured to like my golden ratio. So I would assume that's like perfect in my eyes. I was kind of chubby, I had like mentalities. And I want to get rid of that first. After I got into like the consultation part of it, I asked my parents to leave and I was like, you know what, like in case I die, like might as well go all the way out. And I asked the surgeon to add like a Brazilian butt lift as well, like, you know, just so I can go ahead and add some more fat transfer into my ass. Because if I don't survive the surgery, like I want to look like perfection when I wake up.
Is not surviving a surgery a concern for you?
Clearly not anymore. Cause like
So let's ask ourselves this. How do we stay in business if we do not influence and promote these things?
Well, I mean, I'll tell you, but if you just clip it out, because I never see my age online.
Oh, really?
Yeah, never.
So you're like Mariah Carey, like you won't see your age.
I won't see my age at all, ever. Because it kind of ruins like the whole like market.
I'm gonna guess.
Oh my god, you're gonna like offend me.
No.
Saying your age ruins the market. But you want to tell me these brilliant people have no idea how to read another human being.
Another thing I want to talk about is Dubai, the Dubai of it all. Yes. I always see you in Dubai, working.
Always working, hooked up with like all this.
I thought Dubai was like not safe for gay people.
Dubai opens their arms to anyone, except I think not trans people right now. I think they're still like stuck back there, mind-wise.
So when you go there, are you flying yourself there and putting yourself up and then touring there, like having a bunch of guys lined up there, or is someone flying you out there and you're with them the time that you're out there?
No one pays for my shit. I paid for this with my own money. I paid for like all my clothes with my own money. I paid for everything with my own money.
So, okay, so you pay for yourself to go to Dubai. You put yourself up and you just go through your DMs and you're like, I'm in Dubai, and the reach out, or what happens?
Well, normally they reach out to me before and just make sure that they're going to be there when I arrive. Not to toot my own horn, but I don't really need to post that I'm there. Like usually when I go out, it's already like a little marketing scheme. It's just like
So that's what happens in Dubai. Yet, let's see.
Say at an online company, which is based out of Dubai, and you're making money online, and the money is banked in Dubai. You don't owe the UK a fucking thing. And that's what's so amazing to me, that you go around a city with perfectly clean streets, perfect law, all these bright lights, and all this beauty with 0% taxes. Say you had an online company, which is...
So an online company which is based out of Dubai. You have perfect law. Now let's look at the comments before I even play this. I lived and worked in Dubai for 7 years. Everything you say is 100% correct, and thank you for having the courage to share the truth. Dubai tries so hard to whitewash their image, which is why it's so important to have real people tell stories about what's really going on there under their glittering facade. Don't give up your passport to anyone. Thanks.
And some of them, they were doing this for 10, 20 years. And so I can see Pakistan, Bangladesh, Myanmar, Philippines a lot, Egypt, different countries in Africa as well. And basically all my co-workers, they were earning less than me because I was kind of a supervisor and I had a private room while they had a shared room, and they were also earning less than me. But they will take all this money, let's say $300 per month, and they will send them back to their family in the Philippines, in Vietnam, in Cambodia, in India, in Sri Lanka. So all my teammates, basically, they were not leaving. They were just working, taking the money and sending back home. And some of them, they were doing this for 10, 20 years. And so I kept going for a few months, but at some point I really had it enough and I broke down. I was really like devastated, like mentally, physically. I was completely exhausted. And you're probably wondering, Gabi, why don't you just quit, take your passport and go back to Italy? And yes, that's true. I will think the same way right now. But you have to understand that back then I was very weak mentally. My mental health was terrible. My self-esteem was terrible. I was very manipulated by the management. I was also very brainwashed, and they would make me feel like guilty that I was responsible. I was a supervisor. I was a role model. People were looking up to me. I have to give a good example. And I was believing all those things. It's crazy, to be honest. And my mental health was getting worse and worse and worse. So I decided to stay. I stayed for 6 more months. I almost completed the year. And around the year mark, which is the time that I supposed to get the holiday, I was ready to get my passport back, go on vacation in Italy, and then come back to work in Dubai. And within myself, I thought maybe this is a great opportunity to get my passport, just leave for vacation and then don't come back anymore. And actually so many people do like this. I went to ask for my passport to go on holiday, and here is the crazy thing, because they sit me down and they put a paper in front of me, the HR department, and the HR manager told me, the policy here is like this. I can give you your passport, you can go on vacation, but in order to give you your passport, 2 of your co-workers, they have to sign and they will be responsible for your passport. So if you don't come back and you don't bring me back the passport, they will be in trouble and they will be responsible for it. So do you see how they structure it? So it's not only about you, but they also make other people responsible. And I had my manager and my co-worker to sign this paper. It's mandatory that they have to sign this paper if you...
So the perfect laws. Isn't that interesting? It's so interesting how these people just can't seem to see this.
The number of veterans in this country, I mean, it's got to be more than 1 million. There are so many people in this country that really understand violence, and they're not the ones calling for violence. They're not the bunch of Nazi people. Right. The people that really understand violence, that have seen violence, that have committed violence for their country, those are the motherfuckers that you break glass in case of war. You need them, and people don't understand that. Like these people running around calling for violence, calling for a revolution. Like, you are going to open a door that you can never close. And when those fucking soldiers come pouring out that door, they want to defend what they think is an attack on their freedom and their country, you're fucked.